the chamber this morning, and also to those that are listening to us online. Right, so I'll call for apologies. Just everybody's here, just Caleb is actually present. Doesn't form the quorum, but we've got quorum anyway, so that's all good. Is there any notification of additional urgent business? Any declarations of interest for today? Okay, we'll move on now to the confirmation of the minutes for the July the 3rd ordinary meeting and excluded report, please. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Seconded Sue. All those in favour, please say aye. Yes, carried. Right, this morning we have a public forum, and it obviously relates to our agenda item 7.2. So welcome Stuart Bay. We've been walking the last few days. So welcome Stuart and the fellow village people from Matamata-Piako. So welcome. If you'd like to come up, Stuart, and kick it off. Just to remind you, there's 5 minutes, and haven't got a timer on, but I'd like to keep us soon after that 5 minutes as possible, preferably. So welcome. Good morning.
Kia ora. Morena, rangatira mā, manuhui me Adrian, rātou kōna member o na kanihara, tēnā koutou katoa. Ka nui taku mihi ki te tūtaki, ki te kōrero, ki a koutou katoa, I tēnei aha. Ki mai koe ki a hau, he aha te me nui o te ao, māku e ki atu, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata, he hei Māori ora. Greetings all. To save having a translator this morning, I've used a well-known whakatauki. It's all about people first. My dad's Maori uncle Roo, yes, the same as in Manawa Roo, gave his life trying to save his Pākehā boss in a boating tragedy. Greater love is no man than this, than to sacrifice his life for others. We may be in civil and community service, but every human life is worth the ultimate protection, and especially our tamariki. I'll briefly introduce our speakers for you, Mayor Adrian. We have Justin Thompson here. Justin is the a Manaroo ratepayer, a resident, pastor at Manaroo Bible Church, and his young family are the most affected by proposed changes. Ash Tanner, who you'll know, former mayor, friend of Manaroo, and advocate for common sense. Those are our two brief speakers after I hand over some time to them. We then have in the row here behind me, we've got Andrew Linton, General Manager of Hillview Trust. He's a ratepayer in Manaroo as well, and he's also General Manager of Community View, CV. I'll use that CV so you know it means Community View. Lee Love, she is the Operations Manager of CV, Cafe 77 Manager, tirelessly trains dozens of young Manarooites in their first job experience. She's a whiz on social media with a very large following. And then Peter Tate Jamison has been our legal counsel we've referred to over a period of time. I have Morris Kosh behind there. He's a beloved kaumātua, founding member of Hillview Trust, lifetime farmer, our kaumātua, and chair of the Manaroo Community Church, and works for Peter on that. So my speech starting now for my few moments is Manaroo is no ordinary place. We're passionate people with heart and soul. Oh, forgive me, is it all right seated or should I be standing?
No, you're fine.
Okay. Two examples spring to mind of our early settler petitioners. You've heard the saying, we live out in the sticks. The Manaroo name in 1903, the set was strongly petitioned and reclaimed it as stolen property. It was stolen by Te Ara West, and they in turn got the name back and they onset the name that we had to Wardville, and it's Aratiatia, which means the place among the sticks, right? I can see why they set it on. The second one I want to bring to your mind is the road outside the Manaroo Creamery in 1914 had 20 ratepayers petition this council to be put in order, and the council engineer agreed and obliged. And so you see the thought process for us that you know well that the villages locally, and many of them have collapsed in Matamata-Piako, when factories close and or they lose their school and the businesses. Their heart and soul evaporates to being just names on a map. Our village dates back 125 years, and we have preserved our proud history and heritage centred at CV. 2 churches are still active, 2 thriving schools, and community organisations with heart and soul. We have been and still are passionate people for truth, reason and common sense. We are not ordinary in the sense of being classed as average or a place to put in a national conformity box to satisfy bureaucrats. We are unique. Manawatu is our home, and it's worth fighting for today as it was in the past. Thank you, Mayor Adrian, for allowing my last-minute note to the councillors and allowing some brief time for two others. I can only but summarise. Manawatu is a vibrant, thriving hub of activity with 24/7 day and often night activity, standing head and shoulders above its peers. We may only have 4 or 5 streetlights, but the night drive past CV turns heads. I hope you have all done it. Village life rebounded to another level the day CV opened in 2020, when the 40-year-old derelict eyesore of a once proud factory created water cooler talk even in this hallowed establishment. Why don't they just knock it down? Our heritage in mana has been restored. Our mission is community good, and we proudly have entertained tens of thousands of locals and visitors, including approximately 2,000 children in school hours and 400 helpers with these free visits since we opened what to us is the best climbing wall in Matamata-Piako. And these kids are all learning to climb new heights. We believe Council has seriously underestimated our recent growth, our contribution, and the need to communicate more openly and effectively with us, a modern-day Pākehā marae setting. Our concern is for our reputation as a wahi haumaru, a safe place to live, work, play, connect, and share together. And that begins with Manawatu Road, the backbone and spine we all rely on. It must be kept safe. We have achieved Road to Zero, an accident-free village, and 50 kilometres per hour is helping us keep it there. Every petitioner remarked, agreed, or understood that common sense says if you lift the speed limit, the average speed will go up. If it is raised to 60, who of you wants to have the first accident on your conscience? You won't want to be seen in Manawatu, and I can predict now the first media articles and TV appearance for our mayor would be ugly. We want to remain a safe place for generations to come, and all our reputations are on the line today. The result today may go viral, let alone what would happen if there was one incident in Manawatu. Our petition is before you. You need no reminding of what we want. We want unanimous councillor support to our petition to leave the speed limit at 50 kilometres an hour. We fought hard to get it down with previous council help. We would support cheaper options such as speed cameras with number plate recognition and speed recording being considered, and more policing where necessary. Kia ora tātou. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. I'll now pass on to Justin. Justin.
Hopefully don't repeat anything. That's the important part. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you for allowing me to briefly speak. So I represent a young family. So we have 3 children who use the bike track to walk to school. We're on the northern end of the Manawatu border. Generally speaking, by the time the cars are coming through Manawatu, they're certainly well over 50 where we are. We're on that border. If the speed limit was up to 60, or even if the signs were brought closer to our place, which is on the northern border, then we know that it's going to be less safe for our children to walk to school. They have to cross the road twice in order to get to school. One right outside our house, which is on that northern border, just before the 100k sign. And there's also another family that live right next to us who also have to cross the road twice in order to get to the school. And so for us, even at the moment, we don't feel it's safe for our children to walk to school by themselves, and less so if the speed was up to 60. We weren't consulted as a family as well. The first I learned about this was 2 days ago. Our 3 children are at the school. We didn't get any notifications from the school either, so I'm not sure what the process was there. Again, my recommendation is that we keep it at that 50. It's just safer for us as a family. Even my wife this morning, as she was driving out of our driveway, it was very thick fog this morning, and there was a car that zoomed past her as she was about to pull out of the driveway, which was unseen. So all those things would just, for us, would make it safer if it stayed at 50. So thank you.
Thank you. Real brief now, Ish. Speed talking.
I'm real
Good morning.
nervous. Real nervous. Not good. Not good.
Yeah, it is.
So you should then.
Yeah.
Morning, everybody. Good to see everybody here. Morning, Don. Your worship, the mayor and councillors. Again, I put the suit on, jacket on for you.
Islam.
James. Hey, really good to be here. Look, just a little bit of history around it. For the new councillors that probably don't realise, council had been battling for years, over a decade, to get the speed limit dropped at Manaruru. When sort of I got involved, and I think one of the comments was that for 13 years, the school had been trying to get it dropped to 50k. The speed past the school at that time was noted at around about 94k an hour on average, and obviously a lot of trucks were still doing 90k, which was dangerous. So we had another go as council to get the speed limit dropped to 50. NZTA came back and said, no, we think it's more appropriate 60. I got hold of one of the guys, I believe he was in Wellington from memory, and said, you need to come up and have a look at the area, because every area is unique. And to talk about being consistent with other areas, well, Manaruru is different to anywhere. So I don't buy into consistency. If you to relate it to Te Aroha West, there's no primary school, active primary school, there's no event centre there, there's no overnight camping area. It's not a thing. Anyway, I invited the guy from Wellington to come up and have a visit on site. He said, yep, he'll come up. About 2 days before, he rang and said, I can't make it. I'm sending a guy from NZTA from Hamilton over. The guy that came over, we had a meeting out there with some staff members, had already preconceived in his head that it was their idea was 60, and didn't want to have a bar of it pretty much. He had maps already with 60s dotted over it. Communication started breaking down when he said to make it 50, it would cost between, I think, from memory, $140,000 to $200,000 to change the signs. And then what really annoyed me the most was he went on to explain to me, he said, imagine if you're driving over Taronga Way and you go through an area that's got a speed limit of, say, 50, and then you're over a Huntley Way somewhere and the place looks similar and they have a different speed limit, you might get confused. Communication broke down there, and I said, forget about it, mate. Doesn't matter. And that's what drove me to change them myself. And then subsequently, we went on to make it a permanent 50. There's no doubt that that place is busier than it ever has been before. It's a vibrant little hub now. There's kids walking down the road to the event centre. There's camper vans that staying there overnight. The cafe, I think, seems it's probably over 2 years now, and it seems to be getting busier and busier. But, yep, so I'll wrap it up. Looking at the agenda, you're talking about two options, and one of the options to keep it at 50k is going to cost $316,000 for vehicle calming effects. I don't buy into that. I don't believe that. We don't, because they're talking about going from 100 to 50. Sierra Gordon Road, 100 to 50, no calming effects. Coming in from Mangere, 100 to 50, no calming effects. Coming into town this way, none. Stanley Ave coming in from the north, 100 to 50, no calming effects. It's not a thing, guys. Leave it alone. Just leave it. And, to say we're going to put it up to 60k because that's a better option at $160,000, the reputational risk to council, how are you going to defend that out in the public eye when the rates are what they are? That's not a thing. Just forget about it. If I've upset anyone's feelings by changing the signs, I apologise for that. It's a better place for it. The locals agree. Just leave it alone. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for coming over this morning with us. I think we've listened. No questions of clarification. I will, if there's one question, I'm happy to, if there's a question, no lights are on. So we'll leave it at that and we'll move on to our agenda items. Thank you. So I think today will be, as always, our decisions will always be well considered and with report and discussion. Welcome to the report and discussion. So we'll set that tone. So we'll move on to Ellie, and item number 7.1 is our delegation policy and delegation register.
Good morning. If you are happy to, I'll take the document, the report and the document itself as read. I'll just clarify one thing. The main changes that you saw in the attached document under separate cover are as a reflection of the review that council has done in the new position or the changes in position titles that have occurred. A good example is our new community protection and compliance manager. He has come in and he is getting all the powers that are under his people, and we needed to warrant him to do that, and that is reflected in here and those roles that he will undertake in his new role. Yeah,
and I see there's an assumption around a CEO being a he that's now a they, because you know there are women CEOs out there.
Just change it when it comes for later.
It's easy to put they for. It's pretty about the nearest, but anyway, there's no gender thing about that when the wife is the mayor. Okay, any questions for clarification or discussion? Obviously, some of this is around the restructuring of new staff and positions. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for the resolution? Thank you, James Sainsbury. Seconded Russell. Of the motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Ellie. Right, we will now move on to item 7.2, which is obviously follows on from our public forum, Wairua. And we have Barry and Manaia. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. I just want to start by acknowledging Stuart and Ash and the crew behind us. Thank you very much for coming and making your time to speak on behalf of the community. It's really appreciated. I suppose I want to start off by saying I'm not a bureaucrat, okay? It's really important. We've gone into a lot of this work. Sorry, it's hard to talk behind me, but we've got into this work in the right frame of mind for the right reasons. We acknowledge the village settlement and its function, and we acknowledge the vulnerability of pedestrians at the same time. However, the problem is that we have a posted speed of 50k an hour and people aren't adhering to it. If they were, we wouldn't be here. But we are here because we have a problem that we fundamentally need to deal with. The report suggests altering the speed upwards, which sounds counterintuitive. However, we are engineering to bridge the gap between what is a free flow 70 km/h speed through there to bring that down to make it safe and appropriate. It's safe in terms of the vulnerability of the citizens. It's appropriate in terms of the function of that road. So there's two considerations. We haven't gone into this lightly. We've followed the rule. We've followed the guidelines from NZTA. The science behind it is based on mega maps and the One Network framework. Now, Stuart pointed to the fact that it could be argued that it's a stopping place or a peri-urban. Both have the same baseline, 60k. So in other words, they can go upwards from 60k. That's the recommended in the guidelines. I have a copy here. The purpose is to make it safer. If we leave it the way it is, we do not achieve that. So by engineering the speeds down, we get a better result. And that's what we're aiming to achieve. Tamara, can we just have a look at some slides, please? I think so the team's wholly engaged in, yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah, just, yeah. Okay. So this is an example of Springdale. I've used this example because you can see where we're aiming to bring it from 70 to 60, and that is the consistency factor, but also the safe and appropriate speed side of it. Within that is a 30k safety zone for the school. So we've got a distinction there, and this is the preferred approach or layout that we're aiming to achieve, and this would be consistent with Manawaru. So if you can see from left and right, the 100k speed zone is broken down gradually to channel speeds down to 60, and then to create that variable speed environment around the school. Now, today's discussion is not about the school as such, but it is a component of what we're doing. But we're talking about ordinarily outside of school times. What is the appropriate speed and the safe speed for Manawaru Road? And by achieving this, we believe, while we would suggest the posted speed of 60, we would also be engineering through a range of relatively low-cost features to bring those speeds down. We would only have to bring them down 10k an hour, but the benefit of that is that we're achieving compliance because we have that in a speed management plan. We already have certification and we have followed procedure. We have been through a consultative process with community. We didn't go to the village people because we would have had to do that for all parts of our district. Council chose to talk with schools, marae, and community town centres, and that was the approach that we took. However, everything was approved by NZTA, and so far doing these supporting infrastructure improvements at Springdale have been well received by the communities and the schools. And we have no reason to believe that Manawaru wouldn't get the same result from these. So if required, we could do some other low-cost measures over and above these, but the intention is to bring it to a safe and also an appropriate speed. I'd feel less comfortable leaving it at 50 when we know that the free flow speeds are at 70 because that creates a greater risk. And we believe in the road to zero approach as well. But we are in a changing environment, so we have to accept that as well.
So you can confirm that the school was visited during this consultative process, not just at December last year that it occurred.
That's right.
Back in that consultation process.
Yeah, we consulted every school in the district, and we did agree deliberately. We gave them plenty of forewarning that we were approaching them. We went there, we had the conversations around the school gate, about the school bus drop-offs and pickups. We talked about every aspect of risk related to the school environment, but we went further than that. We looked at the whole road. And this wasn't done to avoid anybody. This was done at a time when we had resourcing available so we could get the best effect and gather the intelligence that we needed to make what we consider to be the most pragmatic decision.
Are there any other pictures to show for the cycleway? Have we got?
No, but we recently, this is my colleague Swami's been doing a lot of this work, and it's been very well received. There is a comment on there. I don't know how you guys' eyes are. I'm struggling to see it myself, but we showcased this just the other day with our investment advisor Matt Bush. He was really impressed with the work that had been done and the level of effort that had gone into it, and also the early engagement that we got involved in. So when we went to schools, that was what we termed pre-engagement, because before we went to consultation, we went around all the schools in the district, and we got their buy-in and we explained what we were doing. But the process had been long, and it was always going to be long because it was very involved. So we, by the time you have conversations with 40-odd schools around the district, it's quite a drawn-out process. But I'm happy to take questions.
Sorry, Peter, yep, go first.
The very first question is, you say the current speed of a 50, legal is 50, and the actual speed people go is 70. So if we increase it to 60, in my mind, then the speed will be more than 70.
But we're engineering that speed. So if the free flow is 70 at the moment,
Yep.
we're saying 60 is bridging the gap. So it's bringing it halfway down. We're not achieving 50 currently. We can achieve 60. By implementing such measures, we can bring those speeds down to 10 k an hour. We're meeting the legal obligations, and we're also adhering to safety. So what we have to recognise is that the community is a mix of different, there's passers-by, there's motorists that are just using the road as a means of transiting from one place to another. There's also people that are stopping. There's also people that are crossing, and we recognise that. And getting back to your point, Mayor Adrian, we did consider the cycle trail and the impacts of that, and we can consider putting in indications of where people should be traversing the road to get the best possible safety impacts. But we have to recognise that outside of these hours, the working hours, because it was mentioned earlier, it's 24/7, and we don't want to restrict people unnecessarily down to a 50 k speed environment, which is essentially 50 or less. So we're asking people to drive at 45 k's an hour through there, which in my mind, it's an unreasonably low speed. There are risks, but we counter those risks by working on some of these measures. And we accept that there is an element of risk involved in every road. Every road in the country is unique, not just Manawa. So while we like to classify in order to make our process easier, we accept, and in the rule and in the guidelines, it's accepted that there are a lot of variations, considerations that we have to go through. And that's why we use the MECMAC process. And that's why it looks at the infrastructure risk rating. It looks at the whole road environment. It compares it to other road environments, and it considers all of these elements. This is not something we've just picked. We're not picking numbers here. This is based on guidelines that we've provided. A lot of research has gone into this work under the Road to Zero edition. Yeah.
Kate, I'll just go to Caleb online and then I'll go around the table. Caleb, good morning.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors and guests in the gallery. How much work, Barry, would it take to install these speed calming measures to bring the speed down to 60? Obviously, that's substantially better than 70, and you have an increased survival rate at 60 as opposed to 70. So how long do you think it would take to install these calming measures for everyone?
Well, we were actually ready to go ahead on this one, but obviously the needs of the community need to be respected, and we're hearing those. But this program of work wouldn't take very long. We've already proceeded with, I think, 5 to 6 schools this last financial year. So it would be, I'm picking probably less than a month's worth of work to engage in these things.
And we would begin.
With acceptance of the community, we would begin in this financial year. So we're just into the 24-25 now. So we've got our speed management plan looks at the next at least 3 years outwards to 10 years. So we program and prioritise sites accordingly. And we're really excited about what we've done so far. We're really pleased with the feedback. Swami's been out to schools, talked to communities as well. So yeah, we're really keen to get ahead and do Manawaru and get it to what we consider to be a safe and appropriate speed. We really support the community here. We've always been community focused, but we have to pick an appropriate speed for that road, because otherwise we will be turning all of our streets into 50 k zones, and they wouldn't function because we've got so many different types of motor vehicles using these roads for different purposes. So we have to be careful that we choose a appropriate speed, not just the safe one, a safe and appropriate speed.
Any further questions, Caleb?
No, if I may, Your Worship, I'd just like to comment that I live presently in Manawaru, and I do not take kindly to a comment made by the public forum speaker this morning. I support the speed limit increase to 60 kilometres an hour, and I think it's a good idea to have these speed calming measures in as soon as possible. I do think, Your Worship, that a 50 kilometre hour speed limit is unreasonable, given the current flow rate of traffic at more than 70 kilometres an hour. So I support the staff in this decision, and I think they're making the right call. And thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Dane and then I'll work on that way.
One of the, I guess, arguments that council seems to have between the difference between 50 and 60 kilometres an hour is the cost estimate to get the speed engineered down to 50 as opposed to 60. Going on these 2020 prices that are in the report, you're talking 316,000 to get it to 50 versus 162 to get it to 60. To me, it looks like in the report, the only difference between those costings is that the carriageway would be widened to 4 metres in a 60 kilometre hour situation versus 2 metres at a 50 kilometre hour situation. Can you explain to me exactly what what's meant by the carriageway, and then why you couldn't just leave the carriageway at 2 metres wide if the speed was to be left at 50 kilometres an hour? Why it would have to be and rather than increasing it to 4?
Yep. So the earlier work was done by a consultancy firm who recommended basically to engineer speeds down to 50, you would have to install footpaths and curb and channel. You would have to create that widening in order to accommodate those features. So those prices are actually at the lower end of what they would be now because of the inflationary factors we've experienced. So we could be looking at upwards of, I'm just picking numbers now, 400, 600,000. So it's considerably more. And that was prior to the work that we're looking at here for Springdale. So those examples. So there is a range of tools, if you like, available to council, and we can work on different aspects at relatively low cost. So that is quite an expensive way to go, because what you're basically doing is saying, right, we need to turn Manawaru into a urban environment which is similar to around town. But in doing that, we're going the opposite way to a lot of the function of the road, and the function is actually moving goods as well. It's not just about the day-to-day activities of people and cyclists, etc. It's a whole mix, and that's where the likes of the stopping posts and period picks that information up.
Russell, are you going to put your light on? I'll go to Kevin first.
Kevin turn us on.
Yeah, Kevin's had on for a while.
Okay, I struggle with the concept of speed increasing speed limit, how that would possibly change speed, average speed down. I struggle with that. If you're going to put calming effects in there, then put calming effects that will reduce speed to 50, not 60. I struggle with that. There's a school there, there's a subway, and there's a cafe, and there are residences. In my head, when you've got residences, you're talking 50 k's. End of story. Why would you want to go to 60? I travel that road every week, twice, and it takes me like 30 seconds to get through the township. If that. How much time are you going to save me by increasing it by 10 kilometres an hour? I'm sorry, 5 seconds of my life is nothing. That's I'm struggling with it. Why can't we just speed calm to 50? That's well to me.
Sorry.
Go.
Carry on. Yeah.
What would be the survival rate change of a child or someone being hit by a car if we change it from 50 to 60 and make it hit 60 to 50? My head's in all of the things that I've ever been told about speed, that cars hitting people, suggest that 10 kilometres an hour is a huge difference in survival rate. So why I'm trying to get it down to 50. The cost. Look, if what the rate, what we're doing at the moment, we're increasing rates. We're spending money to maintain services at the level that we currently operate them at. This is not going to be maintaining that service level. This is going to be changing it. So, hey, why are we spending the money? And if we are going to spend the money, then how much is the light worth? You know, let's spend the money to get it to do what we wanted originally, which was get it down to 50. Just my, I've pondered over this ever since the agenda came out and trying to work out what on earth we would be achieving. And I just don't get it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe we all share the same objective and outcome. We want a speed in the village that is safe. We know, with all due respect to the previous mayor, who I was involved in that particular process, so I have a high regard for what he was trying to do. We know that just putting a sign up does not achieve the safe outcome that we want. From a staff perspective, we are required to assess the framework that you have to operate under and work out how you achieve the outcome. So you have two recommendations on your agenda. One is the 60K, which from a technical perspective, staff support, but we also know that you can achieve a 50K as well. And it is our duty to inform you what is recommended to achieve that outcome. So your point is, if council wants to get the 50K, we acknowledge that. Just want to reiterate, putting a sign up does not achieve the outcome. And it wasn't me who mentioned it because I didn't want to mention it, but our speaker this morning mentioned about, goodness gracious, if the worst thing happened and there was an accident there. And that is just so difficult to ponder. What I would say to you as a council, that you have to operate within this framework. You are required to operate within this framework. The powers have been delegated through the legislation and the rules to enable you to make decisions. But those powers require you to have certain considerations. So what I would say to you is that you would not be performing your duty under those powers if you moved to 50K and didn't do something else. Now, the reality is, and if I can use a quote from my chief executive, everybody's an expert on speed. The regulations and the rules are there to try and remove some of the objectivity in this, but there's still objectivity. There's still objectivity. So Barry was mentioning about reducing the speed to 60K and putting in certain measures in there. That doesn't stop there. We have to go back and we have to monitor to see whether we've achieved the outcome. If you decide to move to 50K and decide to do certain measures, we would go back there. We are obliged on your behalf to go back there and see if we achieve the outcome. The critical thing is it's the outcome we're trying to achieve. So long-winded answer to your question, yes, you can achieve the 50K speed.
Just one last point. Children are not experts on speed.
100%.
And those are the lives we're trying to change.
And that's your responsibility. Absolutely right.
Hey, Sharon, you.
Oh, I did, but it was just a general comment to say that personally, until we change driver behaviour, it doesn't matter what speed you are going to put out there. If you make the wrong choice and don't keep to that speed limit, it's on you. So, I mean, I had that last night at the Puketaha school. You hit the red thing, you hit the 60K. Now someone behind me decided, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do 100 right through. That was their choice, and I made my choice to stick with 60. So, yeah, it all comes down to safety with these kids as well.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately, we
yeah.
can't change the views of all motorists
Yeah.
out there. I had exactly the same thing this morning coming through. Temporary speed limits are the same. You know, they're about reducing speed over a short-term basis, but people choose to ignore them or they choose to obey them. But we are trying to bridge a gap here. We do see a difference. 20k over is quite a sizable difference in speed. If we can reduce it by 10 kilometres an hour, that is a good outcome. We are staying within the rule. We're staying within the guidelines. We already have our plan certified. It's approved. We don't have to push backwards and forwards with Whakatahi and ZTA. We have their buy-in already. I think it's a better outcome for the community. It's a better outcome for those motorists travelling through.
Go to Russell.
First of all, thanks, Barry, for the report and the work you've done over the many years by the look of it. One of the disadvantages you've got written here for if we stick to 50 Ks is would require a future update to the SMP and include the agency's endorsement. So if we approved it to 50, it could still be turned down?
Possibly, yes.
Also, can you advise me the variable speed limit? Where would be the location and the timings?
I haven't indicated those in my report, but the variables relate to the school zones. So currently we just recently had some consultation on the new rule, which is called the 2024 rule. It's in draft still, it hasn't been decided. So the minister has yet to look at the thousands of submissions on that one. So what they were advocating was 150 metres either side of the school gate, which is not a very substantial distance. There was a comment earlier about getting kids to and from schools, and we wholeheartedly support that. We've been involved with school travel planning on other schools, and we have an open, we're open to working with Manawarri in that instance. So getting back to your point, where those exactly those measurements, I can provide that to you, but they'll be positioned in a similar way to how Springdale was shown earlier. It is a little bit case by case because not all school environments are the same either. But we are sitting in a period of a little bit unknown territory because we are waiting on consultation outcomes from the 2020.
So could that be extended down as far as the cafe and that, or is that stretching it too far?
No, it's unlikely to be stretched further.
Okay, James.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want this conversation to be dominated about cost. I don't think cost has got anything to do with it. So it's about being safe, and I agree with that. And it's about but what is the appropriate speed for being safe? Just a question: the independent, just in terms of consistency as well, the traffic management report for the cafe, was that 60k? That was for the resource consent. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
so that was the recommendation back then, and obviously we're going to have variable speed. We mentioned how important that is as well. I suppose if we, if it became 60, and I'm not producing anything around that. Like I say, I don't believe that the cost is a thing. Safety absolutely is. I would like to see, you talked about the traffic calming measures being able to be done in this financial year. I would like to think that if we were able to come to a decision today that we can progress it very quickly. I drove through Springdale the other day and I was very impressed with how that looked. It was very clear that you're coming up to a small settlement, and it was very clear that you had to modify your speed. I take Sharon's point. I mean, driver behaviour is not. It doesn't matter what that is, but yeah, and I certainly, whatever decision we make today, we're not disregarding safety in the village, safety of any of our villages.
James. Bruce.
There's an awful lot in here, isn't there? But today, I've written this based on the report and submissions. Council is essentially reconsidering its decision to set the speed limit of 60k. And that
decision was supported by expert analysis, and it looked to apply consistency across our rating network using rules we should adhere to. In my mind, consultation was undertaken in an appropriate manner. The report prepared by staff is not, in my opinion, inadequate, as stated by Mr. Bay. It is comprehensive, informs us of the issues and gives council options to consider. I do note that no formal consultation by council took place prior to the action in the reduction from 70 to 50. Perhaps we, and it includes myself, were wrong in formalising that. Speeds of 70 plus are being recorded under the existing 50k signage, so traffic calming measures are obviously required to achieve a lower speed. There's an expectation that roading controlling authorities abide by the guidelines unless a decision otherwise can be justified. Contrary to the petition submitters, I do not see Manawatu being able to consider itself any more unique than a multitude of communities, settlements across the country. I can compare it to Matamata, where I live. State Highway 26, thousands of vehicles a day at 100+ kilometres per hour. Coronation Road in Morrinsville, a heavy traffic count feeding two major schools. I could compare it to the stretch of Kerryon Road between Walton Road and Bolton Road intersections that has a rail crossing, a marae, and numerous heavy vehicle entries to commercial properties. By comparison, Manawatu is a quiet backwater on a low traffic volume rural road. The request, or more correctly, the demand made today for council to unanimously support the submission fails to understand that we follow democratic process in this chamber. And the request for installation of speed cameras with number plate recognition, speed recording and more policing is unrealistic for council to consider. It would set an unwelcome precedent, open the floodgates for cameras and police surveillance to counter other antisocial or criminal behaviour. We should be careful of what we ask for. That's my summary.
Gary.
Just a couple of thoughts. We're at 50 kilometres an hour at the moment. We're thinking about increasing to 60. We're thinking of introducing some calm measures. And then there's the impact of cost that might affect us should we go to 60. Is there an opportunity to introduce calming measures first? Test, monitor, see how things unfold, and then look at the what it would then cost alongside the community to monitor this and make sure that everybody's got the same evidence that actually to do, or things aren't happening as we thought they might, or that we do need to go to 60, and actually now we need to look at what's going to cost. So all that's interesting. Is there an opportunity for council to make a decision that allows us to step this process out and have people involved in the monitoring, but still be able to check what we need to do?
There's certainly an opportunity, but the advantage of the 60 is that we know for sure that it's supported. If we go to 50, well, sorry, we're already at 50, but if we continue with 50 and we've got a speed management plan that indicates 60 for Manawatu, then we're not guaranteed that we'll get buy-in from the agency. And that puts us back where we are now, basically. So a lot of thoughts going on.
You said we've got the plan.
Yeah.
I get that we've got the plan.
Yeah.
All I'm suggesting is, can we step this plan out?
Yes.
So that people can become involved in what would ultimately be the end decision.
Yeah. So the answer to that is yes. There are risks associated with it, but yes, you can. The issue doesn't go away. It just means that you'll phase it. Yes, that is possible.
I think the critical thing is that understanding that this may not comply with the agency that we have to be accountable to, we have to keep our eye on that, and we would.
We'll go back to Kevin. Just a question around that. If the agency doesn't support it, will they subsidise the traffic calming measures? Because that is part of it. Is
That's
it
a
not?
very good question. I'm not clear on that, but I would suggest they definitely endorse it at the moment. So that's a good starting point.
Right. So they would potentially subsidise that. Still.
We would make the case that that previous resolution that was passed in 2020 had a caveat that we would put traffic calming measures in over time.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah.
We would attempt to say, if the council wanted to stage it and say, let's leave the speed at the stage, and I'm not trying to influence you at all, trying to lay out how our job is to achieve what you want to achieve. So we would leave the speed as it is. We would put in the traffic calming measures that we've identified, and we'd monitor that, but we'd advocate to the agency that council is committed, as it said in that previous resolution, to achieve the outcome. And that's the ultimate thing. We've got to achieve the outcome. So and I would imagine that they would want to, when I say that agency would be seeking firm evidence of that commitment to achieve the outcome.
Conscious there's a few people have already spoken and there's some that haven't. Are there anyone want to have an opportunity to speak now? Listen to us. Keep going. Okay, Kevin. And also Caleb and Jane. Oh, yes.
Gary kind of see what I wrote down. Wouldn't leave it at 50 and put speed calming measures. That's what we were trying to do. When was it? 2020? 4 years ago. We don't have speed calming measures. But anyway, that's great. And Barry, did I hear you correctly say that this plan has been submitted and approved?
Speed management plan here. So we've got our plan that incorporates Manawari is a network-wide plan. So it was put together, the previous week that we've done has been to put this plan together, which looks at predominantly schools, rural locations, town centres, and some changes to speed on other roads. But you'll recall the process that we undertook to go through to the stage, and we submitted that as a whole of network plan, and the agency has endorsed it. Yes, they've certified it, so that means that they've looked at the whole process that we engaged them, how we went about pre-engagement, how we did our consultation, all of the locations that we've detailed in our plan. So that has all been certified.
So that they're not forcing us to go to 60.
It's in our plan, so it's approved.
We approved.
We approved our speed management.
We also approved 50 k's and speed limit.
No, this is subsequent to that. We're
going to go back and look at all our resolutions and figure out if one of our the recent things is contradicted it. Go do that as well.
Okay, I've got Dane and Edith.
I like what you just said, Manaia, about trying to reach an outcome where the outcome we're trying to reach is the 60 kilometres an hour for the town, which I would guess everybody in the room would be happy with, given that at the moment the average is 70 kilometres an hour. I guess my concern with if you lift the speed limit to 60 is that it's very difficult, I would imagine, for an average speed to reach to 60 k's an hour, given that typically a lot of people will go through the town at probably 65 if it's 60, whereas they might go through at 55 if it's 50. If you could say to me, hand on heart, if you lift it to 60, the average speed, we're not going to stop doing what we're doing until we reach an average speed at 60, I would be okay at 60. But my concern is that, again, lifting it to 60, I believe that the average is going to be slightly higher than that, which is why if we stuck with the 50, did the speed cover measures, it's going to give us an average speed that's below 60. I just don't see you will get to 60 if the speed is 60. I guess that's where my concern is. If this process is going to go through and you're going to say, hey, we're not happy until we've got an average speed that's below 60, then I would be happy to say 60. But that's my concern, is that you're going to end up with an average that's higher than that if you lift it.
And I'm treading on if I can, on my engineer's toes, and I'm not an engineer, and you all know this. For me, the objective is to get the outcome.
Mm.
That's and so that whatever is done and you decide on it, we have to try and achieve the outcome. And so we have to give you technical advice. The technical advice is that this 60k fits. These are what you need to do, and we can go ahead and do it quickly. If you gave us a decision to say leave it at 50, but put these calming measures in, there are other risks associated with it. Okay, but that's why that is your decision. And yes, we would collect information to see what outcome we've achieved. Absolutely.
Peter, and then back to Caleb.
Yeah, Barry, another question. Speed limit was dropped to 50 4 years ago. Have any calming measures been done in the last 4 years?
No, it's not in Manawari, no.
I mean, straightforward questions, worldways change if they're not done. Is it compulsory to do the speed calming measures? Is council obliged to do that?
Well, again, I'd answer that question. As I mentioned before, there is a framework as a road controlling authority yourselves. You are obliged, as Councillor Dew has pointed out, to consider a framework. That framework gives you some flexibility, but you have to consider all of these issues. So the metaphor I'll use is the earthquake standards, where we've got a line in the sand drawn by the national, by government to say this is the standard you must meet, and then you see where you sit in relation to that standard. So my point is, the framework says you can't just put a sign in. You as a road controlling authority must understand that on its own does not allow you to meet your obligations. And that's why I say if you decide to leave it at 50k and put the measures equivalent to 60k, it's onus upon us to advise you what outcome that achieves. And it might achieve the outcome that you want, and you might be very happy. What we are obliged to check that, because we are obliged to ensure that you keep within the law.
And another point I want to make is that, I compare Manawaru with, Waitoa, Te Araha West, and what makes it a bit different for me is the fact there's a cycleway in the middle of town, in the middle of Manawaru, and people are directed to cross the road. And that doesn't happen in any of the other towns that I can think of. So to me, that's quite significant. And if I'm just trying to picture Manawaru, it's sort of where you were asked to cross the road on that cycleway is close to, maybe not close to, but there's a bit of a curve there as you go down over the bridge. And that's, perhaps a danger factor the other towns don't have.
I guess the challenge there is how far do you engineer for points in a day, points in a week, points in a month, when it's a rural village and not an urban environment. But that's just trying to get my head around that.
And we have considered the cycling element. It was one of the most adverse things we picked up on, and we recognise that there will be some work involved in that. But at the same time, you have to keep coming back to the function of the road, because it's quite important to recognise that this is not an urban street in the middle of the town. This is a rural environment. So we have to consider also that we don't want to frustrate motorists, because you get the situation where you constantly, you don't see people on the road, you end up doing a speed that's inappropriate because of it's not self-explaining. There is a term called self-explaining. So some roads will fit the conditions, other roads not so much. So this is an example of one where it doesn't feel like 50, it feels like 70, and that's why people drive at 70. So we have to engineer it down. The reason I've chosen 60 is because it's good advice under the guidelines. It's also achievable relatively easily. To try and get down 20k an hour takes quite a lot more engineering. So, yeah.
Okay, Caleb, one more time.
I think Barry's just made my next thought very plain. I take what Dane has said, and it's a good point. I take what Peter has said. It's a good point. I guess ultimately it's what we can achieve. It's what we can achieve that's going to provide the best outcome. And if the best outcome is lowering it to 60 and is lowering the average speed to 60, but the sign posted limit is increased to 60, then I would see that as a considerable win. Every day I hear traffic going over the bridge not far from my house at speeds far exceeding 50 kilometers an hour, even though the sign posting is at 50 at both the north and south ends of town. We cannot force people to change their behavior as a council. That's not our purview. Our purview is to make sure that the roads are of good quality and are safe to operate their vehicles on. And at present, it is my estimation that this particular stretch of road, as unique as it is not fit for that function. We must make the changes necessary to make it fit for that function. As I said earlier, I support the staff's input, and I think they've made it very plain. We must also be consistent with our roading policy across the board. If we start setting precedents for one town, every other town is going to want a precedent. And as it was said earlier, every road will suddenly become an urban road, and you'll have all of Tower Road, as an example, doing 50 kilometres an hour when that is not its function. So I must endorse the staff here.
Yep. No, thanks, Caleb. I'm keen to sort of start to wrap this up. So
yeah, and I'm keen to move it to a solution as well, because I feel we're going to go round and round here.
We need to come
I'm not so keen about being threatened that this is going to go everywhere. I don't think that's wise. What I do feel is a really good solution is, can we stage this barrier? Can we put the school calming in? Because we really are talking about safety of school, really, that's all there is, and they're there from 9 till 3. Can we put the calming in? Work with these people to show them that that is going to be the solution that they want. And if they can get to that stage, then yes, we can go back to the legal of putting it to 60. Is there a solution here? Because we're going to go round and round, and you know, we need to work with these people so that they are comfortable that what we are saying is actually what is going to work, and find a way through this, because it is not sensible working you against us and us against you. That is not a way forward. That is just not a solution. We need to find a solution. I don't know whether we can find it today, whether we have to find it today, but this is not right. We need to find a way through it.
Because it's what is the problem we're trying to solve, and at what cost.
And I think we should be working closer.
You don't put a price.
We should not be working against each other.
And while we don't put we don't want to put a cost on it, especially when there's a low. The speeds have been 70 k's, and I have not heard of any evidence of near misses or accidents across any of our schools who have been lobbying for speed, lobbying for a while in some cases for a reduction in speed outside their schools. So, and it is part of the school. Right, I'll go back to James. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so I guess firstly, absolutely exemplary report, Barry, and huge respect for professionalism and patience and tolerance in preparing the report and going through the process. And similarly, adding to that, Mania, I think the comments today really taking the politics out of this for me and really focusing on what the issues are rather than anything else. And the way I see it is we have an obligation, including as a road regulating authority, to fulfil the road posting, which is either 50 k's or 60 k's, and that is never going to go away. So, in other words, if we do this interim thing where we keep it at 50, we put in place the road coming measures down to 60, which we already have budgeted, if that's correct, and we review that actually we achieve around about 60. We will still be revisiting this decision of, do we now invest another $200,000 and bring it down to the posted thing, or do we bring 50 up? Is that a fair summary of that? Nothing, that's not changing. That's nothing to do with your report. You're simply communicating the framework that we need to work in. And so with that in mind, I do take the point that Dane raised about essentially we've got the budget to get to 60, taking on board Sue's thing about we really need to move together on this. this idea that we put in the road coming measures. We appreciate, based on at the moment, really all it we would expect it to do would bring it down to around about 60. That will be reported back to us. We still have the responsibility if it's at 60 to either bring the speed limit up or invest another 200,000. That's an option, yeah. It's just essentially it's just this decision now is being put downstream a little bit. Is that right?
Yes, definitely an option. Ultimately, I'll just say that I'm giving you my technical opinion, but it's up to you guys to decide.
No, I appreciate that very much.
But it's definitely an option. Yeah.
And I guess so. The road coming measures to get it down to, as proposed to have it in the 60k space, is not inconsistent with if we wanted to get down to 50, that's additional work other than the channeling issues. Yeah. Yeah. Great. So, and then the risks of taking that approach, Manaya, which you alluded to, are what?
Well, the biggest risk I see is, and as Barry pointed out in his report, that the guidelines are being reviewed at the moment. The biggest risk is that we know that this doesn't fit under the framework and that our agency will potentially do something about that. Now, we would advocate, if that was the decision that you want to make, we would be very clear to the agency that the council understand this is stage one and we know we're going back. We'd have to try and get their support to ensure that we don't compromise funding and our relationship.
Yeah, and so I guess in that space, this idea of essentially a stage one and an understanding, if for some reason that's what the council decides to do, that there is a stage two potentially, and then that stage two is either an additional investment or a change in the speed limit. Yeah. Is that the narrative that
yes,
you were?
And I mean, the outcome we would hope for is we do whatever you say, and we don't have to do anything more. I mean, we'll measure it, we'll monitor it.
Well, we have to. I mean, that's happening, right?
Yes.
And I guess following on to that is the latest policy around the coalition is that they are unwinding a lot of speeds that occurred, and I can highlight in Scotsman's Valley going through to Tautari, that, and I know it was discussed when the speed was changed to 50, is technically the road should have been 80 as well. Mangaru Road, there was the talk of, changing the speed so that if it was going to be 50, that the open road had to be 80, which is what they've done in Tautari. And I'd have to say it's quite ridiculous because the 50 and 40 full time, and I've heard a lot of people especially act over it, and that's the whole thing around what's realistic and practical for the road users, because there has been no accidents, evidence of accidents at any district that I know of where we're all fussing over 50 k's an hour. That's an urban speed, but open to obviously whatever you're willing to decide today. So I'll get Bruce to close off, and then hopefully we can come to someone to make a resolution.
Can I just clarify, Kevin? Page 10 quite clearly defines what process we went through, and we put a new consultation. We went out to consultation, and we in May or whatever 20 last year we started, and this came to a head because Mangaru, I think, was to be the first one we were going to have a go at. And that's when all hell broke loose, right? It's very good to see that we said, okay, well, let's shelve it at the moment. We went back, we've done Tahuna. It looks magnificent. You've mentioned Springdale. It looks very good. I think if we do the same sort of traffic calming measures in Mangaru, we'll achieve the result we're looking for.
And these people will be happy.
And everyone will be happy. We've had a damn good discussion here. All right. I'm quite happy to move the report we received. The council increases by 10 kilometres the current 50 to reach a safe and appropriate speed limit of 60 kilometres per hour, while also completing safety improvements, both as recommended in the speed limit.
Don't give a second. I'll second that. Thanks, your Jane, Bruce. Second, Sarah Jane, second for the discussion.
I like what James was proposing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a proposal, perhaps we put it to the vote. And then we can see if it's passed or not, and if it's not, that we seek a second resolution. Unless
Amendment to that.
you can make an amendment.
And amend it to what James.
Well, Bruce is the mover. Is he willing to change to amend that?
We've gone through the process. I put that motion. Look, it's a democratic process. If there is not a majority here, then that's fine.
Yeah. So we'll start with that. Moved Bruce, second Sarah Jane. That's option that the report be received and that the council increases by 10K.
Madam Chair, is there a
And
point
number
of
3, that we undertake routine speed counts on Manuaru Road to monitor the effectiveness of speed reduction.
Madam Chair, is the point of order that we discussed the amendment first? I think it's
It's different from, it's quite significantly different from what's being proposed. It's a different motion because it's not a tack on, it's an and or.
This has been so thoroughly
Correct.
fleshed out. Speaking to people in Springdale, it has been highly effective. The speed limits are coming down. I was super skeptical of that anything would change within Springdale, but it has been effective. The signs, the big red road marking, and the rumble lines are effective. It is working. This speed management plan, this is what we agreed to. If we start changing it for one village, it is going to set a precedent, as Bruce has pointed out. What about Matamata-Piako? What about the rest of the smaller rural villages? It's going to have a snowball effect.
So we'll put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? No. Okay, can I have a show of hands, please, for the motion?
I am for the motion.
2, 3, 4, 5. And against? 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, so that motion is lost. Can I have another recommendation then, please? Kevin?
I'd like to move that
Can you speak up, please?
remain at 50 kilometres an hour and speed calming.
So if you're looking at or,
Can I add to that, Kevin?
so is this the or that council maintains the current 50 kilometre an hour speed limit yet relative to the speed
Until,
management plan significantly?
can I add to that, Kevin? Until all research is done, what I'm trying to say.
How long do you keep
Until it-
kicking the can down the road?
It's just that how much longer do we keep monitoring it? What we're doing is just pushing it out further and further. We're going to be back here in, let's say, 6 months' time, having this exact conversation.
So the resolution that you're passing, is it the or, Kevin? That you're
The government are
proposing?
likely to put the speed up. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
We're putting it up on State Highway 2 to 100.
The order doesn't make sense in terms of
Something like that is
required.
Mm.
I don't understand.
So yeah, that's to meet the 50 kilometre an hour.
Couldn't agree.
So you're saying maintain it to 50 and begin the speed calming
Calming measures
to 60.
and monitor it to see
60.
what it does.
To 60. Because I think the challenge that we have here is with the 50k speed limit is if there's an expectation that we have to modify and engineer to that 50k is significant. And that's the precedent.
Yeah, it's Caleb saying, it's not our purview to make people go 50 kilometres through. That's a police. We just want to make this bloody village safer. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, but is it
This
unsafe?
has nothing to do
Is
with
it unsafe? Is it
Barry and the
unsafe?
staff. They've done a great job putting this together. And 100%, it's consistency. It's obeying all of the rules that we should be doing.
So do you see any, when you drive through Matamata-Piako, do you feel it's unsafe?
At 50 kilometres, but
Oh, even I travel at 60, it's safe.
Okay, do I have a seconder for, or James, have you?
No.
Yeah, you go. Was there a seconder for Kevin's motion?
So can I just check that I understand the motion?
Council maintains the current 50-kilometre speed limit, and the council begins speed calming measures as planned for the 60k speed limit. Is that right? Is that what you're after?
Yeah.
Is that right?
What you're after?
And that staff monitor and report back. That would be. Is that right?
So then we come back in 6 months'
And-
time
and
we
what-
think about
and-
putting the.
And what happens? What happens then?
Yeah.
So we would.
You're leaving it very open-ended.
So we would, as I understand what that intent or discussion is that we would go ahead and put traffic calming measures in appropriate for a 60k speed limit, and then monitor speeds and report back. Well, we would do it. I mean, you need to collect data over a certain amount of time. Now, you wouldn't, to be honest, it would be back in a year.
It'd be at least a year.
Back in a year. Because you need a certain amount of time to judge the effectiveness of the calming measures.
If we need to establish a baseline for measurements based on the changes that we've made and to see if they've made a difference over time, the earliest we can monitor is in an annual cycle rather than biannual. So.
Yeah, I guess I just want to, so my understanding there is that if that's passed, the council will be committing to having a 50k zone in Manawarau with speed calming measures to achieve that.
No,
Let me finish. First. Essentially, that's what that is what that resolution's indicating. What the two-step process, though, is that number one is let's put in the stuff that is currently budgeted, that modelling and all of our expertise suggests will achieve 60k, and if through some miracle that achieves the 50k thing, end of story. If it doesn't, then the engineering team will be coming back looking for additional funding to get down to 50k. So that's how I see that as rolling out. So there's the commitment to 50k. It's just seeing if because our obligations to achieve that don't go away. I mean, I guess just particularly picking up on the point that
we make the speed 60 and make the speed, but
well,
that's what's happening.
If that's what happens, then I take the point that Bruce made of like what the hell. I guess particularly picking up on perhaps Dave's point about the carriageway, the difference where there's quite a bit of difference in cost. It's like, well, we can achieve 50 without doing that, so be it. And essentially, it's a testing that in a real world situation. Note that there's not a recommendation from the engineering team at all.
It's put us in a really interesting situation, and I'm going back to when the speed was changed. I wasn't aware of the lobbying from the community for a 50k speed. I wasn't aware that it had come to the council table in my time in the 4 years that I've been on council in that queue. So this is where, unfortunately, an action has a consequence, and this is the consequence we're now facing. Dane.
The thing for me is that comes back to what I think we're trying to achieve is an average of about 60 kilometres an hour. If we change the speed to 60 and we hit 65 or other, does that mean we're going to come back in 12 months and then drop the thing back to 50? I mean, we've got to go one way or the other. It's already 50. So if we do some speed monitoring and we come back in 12 months' time and we are well under 60 kilometres an hour, then I think the argument could be made that we could look at going to 60 rather than spending extra money to get it to 50, right? But I would rather go that way and work with the community than go, let's stick it to 60 now and then come back in 12 months' time and find out we're over our average of 60 and now we've got to go back to 50 and they go, oh, see, we told you so. Because that would be what I would expect to happen. So I'm backing what James has argued, down to 60, reevaluate in 12 months' time. And to me, if you're at an average that's under 55 kilometres an hour, then there's an argument to potentially put the sign back up to 60 and not spend the money to get to 50. But yes, we're kicking the can, but I think there is a bit more information that needs to be kind of known before we get to that point, which if it's 12 months from now, then fine. We might see you back in the room, it might be going to 60, but at least we'll have some information to be going on more than we've stuck it at 50 and we're getting 70. Let's put it at 50, speed count to 60 and see what number we actually get.
Okay. We need to, so we've had a mover.
I'm happy to amend to include the 12-month scenario that James has suggested.
What they said.
Yeah.
For what's been budgeted
Yeah.
to as traffic calming.
Is that possible, Barry?
Possible. I suppose I'd favour it the other way because at the end of the day, you're you know where you're at. It's a lot clearer to do it the other way.
I just feel
we're spending a lot of time.
You're going to have
to over 10K in there.
Yeah, I agree, and I just feel we need to be working together because what you say is right and what they say they want is what they want. But let's try and find a way forward for this that's not breaking the rules and that we can all agree.
I think the challenge here is the community have come in very emotively. It is an emotional issue. All primary school issues are emotional issue, whether it's a school bus on a narrow country road or with blind corners, whatever, it is an emotional issue. The challenge I have here is with our staff who've got the facts. There is a process to decide a speed and evaluate the speed. That was not done 4 years ago. The speed was changed. As I said before, I wasn't aware of anything coming to council around the Maranawaru community wanting their speed changed. And I know it was prior to Barry's time in council, but am I correct that in the public forum it was mentioned that it was about 13 years? Is there any information to support that? Because again, it's just frustrating that we're now facing this decision.
So can I just I've just tried to add some wording to what I just said before, just to test whether or not it captures it. Council maintains the current 50-kilometre speed limits. The council begins speed calming measures planned for the 60-kilometre speed limit as the first stage to achieve a desired safe speed. And that staff report back. And it has to be at least 12 months after we complete the work, complete physical calming measures.
It's with appropriate supporting infrastructure is basically the thing. So Kevin, you're happy to move that still? And did I have a second? Did Gary mention it initially? You wanted to second that, Gary? No? Okay.
Yep, I'm happy to.
I'll go with Gary then. All those in favour, please say aye. Against?
Yes, I am against.
Show of hands for the aye. 8 and against.
I am against.
4. So it's a motion 8-4. It is not unanimous, as you perhaps were requesting, but it is a democracy here, and we've had a robust discussion. The motion is carried. I would urge that the work begins as soon as possible, that there's a priority in the line. But anyway, it's just going to happen in the 12 months.
No, I wanted to, it was at the top of the priority list. It's been shifted so it can stay where it is in terms of the work plan. I don't want to compromise the other communities.
Okay.
Barry, we thank you.
So
Yes, Barry, thank you.
and of course that was 3 was moved with that as well around the continuous untaxed routine speeding hours.
For those against, did you want me to?
Do you want to be recorded as against?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
That was Russell, Sarah Jane, and Caleb. And
Yes, I will be recorded as against. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for coming in. Thank you for taking the time. Okay, well now I'll move on to item 7.2. 7.3 is the former Polo building and Lawrence Red ground.
Can we have a couple?
No, I'm just going to do it now, just to clear the.
As he said, it is.
Yeah. So we're just going to do this item now, then we will adjourn morning tea. So Ashia, welcome. You have item 7.3 is the former polo grounds and the proposal from Yankee Haulers.
Morning, everyone. I'll do the report as read and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, okay, back to order, please. Ashia's just mentioned that she's taking the report, they are taking the report as read. And is there any questions for clarification or discussion? I think we had a really, just to sum up, I think the Morrisville councillors and I had a really good meeting with the Yankee Haulers and their proposal. I think this is a fabulous opportunity for the community to get involved in utilising a facility. There was a risk mentioned around other users. I think at the end of the day, the other users will get an opportunity to use that facility as well. It will be truly a community.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
That risk, as it were.
Yeah, doesn't see it as a risk.
for me, it's no brainer, isn't it? And good on them for taking over. Otherwise, we get a derelict building on our facilities that has to get pulled down. So, I mean, I'm sorry, you've got questions.
No, I was just going to say exactly the same thing. I mean, it's great. This is what you want from community engagement.
Perfect. And good on them. I mean, they had a bit of a hiccup this year. I think when they went to hook up the power and found out there was no power, and they needed a coding compliance and whatever. So if it's there, ready to go, perfect, and I support it. And
so happy to move 1, 2, and 3, and Jane's happy to second it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thanks, Caleb. No. Sorry, just push that one. We've just done item 7.3 with the haulers. We will now adjourn for morning tea. Thank you. And we'll come back in for items. Yeah, we'll come back in now for item 7.4, which is Te Whare Whakapakari. Yeah, the Matamata Indoor Stadium grant applications. Thank you, Manai.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Adrian and councillors. So the report, I'm hoping that the recommendations that I'm asking council to pass today are not controversial. They are about us accessing funds for this project. It was appropriate for me to include an update on the project because we do have some milestones that we are reaching. We've got some underway right now, which are the 2 contracts that have been tendered, and we're getting to the end of the selection process for the preferred tenderers, which then gives us our prices, which then allows us to review our budget, which allows us to fill in that part of the story, which is great. And it also helps with our grant applications. And of course, we've got a resource consent hearing on the 1st of August that we are very optimistic about. We need to go through that. And I guess probably one of my motivations in preparing this report right now was to signal that we're going to be coming to a point in September where we would hope, if we are going to achieve our timeframe, that council, or we will hope, we'll bring it to you anyway. To achieve our timeframe, we need to make decisions on the acceptance of the contracts, because at this stage we're appointing our preferred providers, but we won't award the contracts until we have the resource consent, hopefully a favourable resource consent decision, which will be early to mid-September, we would hope. And then we would then be looking to award the contracts. And of course, at that point, as I flagged in my report, there will be some funding sources which aren't confirmed. So there is risk there. Now, very fortunate to have the chair of our project steering group committee here, who is keeping us on track. And certainly he may wish to add other things to my report. So my resolution, hopefully, or the recommendations I've put forward are not controversial, but happy to take any questions in relation to the report.
I don't really want to add something. I just want to, and this was discussed at our meeting last week, just want to acknowledge the hard work that Manai is putting into this project, almost above and beyond what to get to the start line, and really appreciate that. You're quite right. We end up being people that have to pick up when and if we proceed in terms of the contract. That's the risk for council. So really trying to do this is minimising the potential shortfall. That's effectively what that is. And so subsequently, unless there's further discussion, I'm happy to move that we authorise the grant applications to proceed this.
I'll second
it. So second it. So move James T. Seconded.
I'll second it.
Oh, Sue's already seconded it. Sorry, Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Not a day.
It's not instant, it's the delay of. Okay, now item 7.5 is confirmation of better off funding. Now this is purely a ratification of as you'll see in the executive summary, that we're now requested to formally confirm the reallocation as detailed in this report. We had the open workshop on the 29th of May, and the reallocation has been submitted and largely approved by the Department of Internal Affairs, and we've submitted the claim on 2 projects. And also to also mention that you'll recall last year with our rates increase that we applied 800,000 of our rates increase to the DIA and the funding for the targeted rate for waters for this last financial year, and that has been approved, yet to bank the money. And some of these things are also, as we see here, submitted a claim. It seems to be that people think that when we voted for the Better Off Monday that we received the money, when the explanation is that we had to apply for the funding. It was quite a rigid process that councils had to follow in order to receive their Better Off funding. Is there any conversation to be had?
Just a question. We can receive this money as soon as possible.
We apply.
Yeah. So
they approve it.
I just want the
Yeah,
us to get this.
this is just a formal ratification of what we've decided. The processes, this decision, these decisions are already underway.
These are being
Progressive,
forward.
yeah.
Brilliant, so we can get it as fast.
Some are well on the way.
Great, that's what we want.
And so it was, sure somebody else, no, moved James. I thought
And moved, I think.
Dane moved, Russell seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Right, item 7.6 is Anne's here with the board appointment and remuneration policy for adoption. And that too was worked through and put it in our open workshop some time ago. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Adrian. Morning, Makoto. This morning I'm here to present the draft board appointment and remuneration policy for council's consideration for adoption. The policy is a requirement under the Local Government Act, and it seeks to set objective and transparent processes for both the appointment and the remuneration of the directors of council organisations. So as Mayor Adrian said, council workshopped this policy a couple of months back at the end of May, and all your direction from that workshop has been incorporated into the policy. We also reached out to CCOs for comment, and their feedback has also been addressed in the final drafting of the policy. So you should find the policy very much as you directed at the workshop. There are several places through the policy that we have reiterated that for our current CCOs, the appointment and remuneration processes that are outlined in their governance documents in practical terms are what will dictate these processes in practice, while also guiding council to take the principles of this policy into consideration wherever possible. So just making clear that hierarchy in terms of the practical application of the policy.
Great. Any questions, clarification? No? Would someone like to move to recommendation, please? Thank you, Sue. Seconded, Sharon. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. It was a good piece of work. It'll probably be very pertinent with our Waikato waters done well when that day comes, when it comes, is that there'll be professional directives. And it's like with RAL and that'll be where the governance documentation will cover that.
Good piece in the paper with lots of quotes from Donald.
Yeah, sure. Very good. Right. We will now move on to private plan change. Have we got which one? We've got item 7.7 is Nathan for the private plan change 58. Or is it Ellie?
Ellie's just on the group.
Kelly's what that? Oh yeah. And it might pay to get Carolyn, message to Carolyn to come down soon too. Good morning, Nathan. You must have been on your way, were you? That's good. We're finally underway. We had a bit of a backlog there for a while this morning.
Yes. Thanks for that. If you do see a replica of Nathan walking around.
Oh yes.
And you're
doppelganger. He's a doppelganger.
Yes, the two best looking men in the organisation.
Ryan and Nathan. Yes. Lovely. Good spotting. Right, Nathan, please change the yeah.
Cool. So yeah, hopefully this will be a less contentious decision that you'll have to make today. But so yeah, Avenue Business Park, private plan change 58. So that was lodged with council in December 2022. It's, the purpose of that was to create an industrial zone on the western outskirts of Morrinsville. It also introduces a set of bespoke provisions for a general industrial zone. So that's been through the process. It was accepted in May 2023 by the council for processing, was notified in June 2023, received 14 submissions, one late submission, notified further submissions in August 2023, and there was one late submission. We had a hearing in February 2024, and it was granted by the independent commissioners, David Hill and James Bezu. And the appeal period for that, so you have a 30-day appeal period that finished in June of this year, and there was no appeals. So the next process, or the next step in the process is to make it operative.
And get on with developing the property.
Yep, exactly.
But certainly assists in meeting our zoning needs for industrial land in Morrinsville, doesn't it?
Yep.
Right, is there any discussion? I think it's fairly clear. We've had independent hearings commissioners do that. The recommendation is there. Would someone like to move, please? Thanks, James. Oh, sorry, I've got James moving. Thanks, Caleb, and Gary. Gary is seconding. Thank you. Put the motion that the report be received and that the pursuant to clause 17 of the Schedule 1 of the Resource Management Act, that we provide that plan change to 58 is approved, sealed with the seal of council and signed by the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer, and pursuant number 3, clause 20 of Schedule 1 of the Resource Management Act, private plan change 58 becomes operational on the 30th of August 2024. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
If I was just comment, Madam Chair, one of the keys to opening up this area was the investment that council made into the Morrinsville stream. But modelling.
Yeah, the modelling was critical.
And that allowed business to collectively in that area understand how they could work with that, and they had a little data. So looking back with hindsight, it was an extremely useful investment by the council.
It was a broken away forward, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so future proof.
Yeah, future proof. I guess just starting at the beginning, we joined Future Proof in 2021. It's I guess a joint partnership between iwi, local councils and government agencies to manage growth across the sub-region. The Future Proof strategy is sort of the key document as part of that, and it was recently updated to reflect the requirements of the National Policy Statement for Urban Development, for including the requirements for a future development strategy. That, I guess, is more important for the Tier 1 authorities than it is for us, the Tier 3 authority, but we are encouraged to produce a FDS. The Future Proof strategy, the updates aren't a future development strategy for us at the moment, but the intention is the next iteration will be. So the current update is just to include us on the first rung of the ladder, and to basically fulfill the Tier 1 requirements of a future development strategy. So the current version has been through the LGA process. It was notified for 5 weeks. There was 49 submissions, 33 submitters presented, and the sub-hearing committee deliberated on those and made a recommendation to the Future Proof Implementation Committee, who endorsed all those recommendations and made a recommendation to the respective councils to adopt this strategy, which is where we're at now effectively. So, and
obviously myself and James, the Future Proof Committee, and I delegated to James to be on the hearing panel for that piece of work.
That was really kind of you.
Yeah. Joyce being there, it's nice to delegate a few things to the deputy mayor. And I guess this is really about, it was a strategically good move from Matamata-Piako to join Future Proof when we made that decision in 2021, because the increasing relationship with Morrinsville to the Waikato councils. The town was gradually getting closer to the city, or whichever way you want to look at, the city's getting closer to us. And of course with the development of the expressway, so there is that link. But it's quite good now with probably my spin on it as well, is that we've now recognised that our district actually plays a critical role in within the Golden Triangle with our connection to Tauranga, and that we're not just looking at as a region, we've got to look beyond our sub-region, and and the opportunities that makes. And of course, with smart growth, which is the equivalent of future proof with Tauranga and Western Bay, is where those links may lie in the future. So it's all about cross-border relationship, whether it be with councils, sub-regional. So is there any questions? Yes, Gary.
Oh, probably just a comment, developing the Matamata-Piako future development plan. This is a really nice section in here, touching that sort of highlights some of the economic opportunities.
Yes.
You know, so I really like to think that we will have a quite good piece of work on that.
Yes.
Going forward. Else.
Yeah, and because we've just come in on it, that will be that flow on of work stream that will be developed over time.
Yep. So that's, I guess, hasn't started yet, but it's all about that.
Yeah, definitely, Gary.
I think part and parcel of that is the work that we will do with the UMI village. There's the opportunity to start.
Well, it's development. Yeah, this is focused on development and growth.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion, clarification? Could I have a mover, please, that the report be received and the council adopts the strategy? Thank you, Gary. Seconded. Kevin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. And Nathan, you're staying on to do the catchment forum, are you?
Yeah, but happy to defer to Councillor Sainsbury.
Lovely. Yes.
Sweet. So next agenda item was it?
Yes, it is item 8.1, sorry.
8.1. So I'll take the report as read, which was that we had the Hauraki Gold Forum meeting in Auckland on the 10th of June. And happy to take any questions, but there's a couple of things I'll highlight. The first one is the ongoing challenges around Kalupa, which is the invasive seaweed. So there are new headers identified regularly in the when it comes up. And so how that's going to look over the longer term is still in question. But on the plus side, one of the really early infestations was identified by the local community, and they managed to clear it out pretty quickly. So that ability to clear with early intervention, it's just that there needs to be ongoing monitoring because it's always going to be at risk of infection.
Clear meaning they actually physically got
Yeah,
it.
it's always physical removal, and there's a range of technologies that have actually been developed in New Zealand to clear these enormous vacuums to suck out the weed. So it is possible to clear areas. The sooner it's done, the better. It's just that continuous ongoing monitoring that's going to be some of those difficult conditions downstream. But that's something in play and very active in that space. The other things slightly subsequent to that was the appointment of a new CE. So Alex Rogers had moved on to DOC, and Dr. Lucy Barragwin there we go, is the new CE. So she'll be on hand for the next meeting, which is in Hauraki. And she's got a whole range of experience in local and central government. And her most recent role was the Housing Action Plan for the Greater Christchurch Partnership. So it's really that ability to pull together a range of different interested parties to pursue a common goal, which fits in very, very well with where you got from. So those are the two things I thought I'd highlight, but happy to talk to anything else if anyone had any other questions.
I have my consistent question.
Scott,
for a friend. When what is happening to the scholar population? They're talking about monitoring. Some of them probably gets hoovered up with the seaweed vacuum, maybe, but that'd be quite a good way to do it. But just interested to know what work is going on in terms of population counts and that kind of stuff.
I can get the figures for you, James. I don't have them right now, but it's definitely not in a space where there's any comfort and allowance developing to go yet. But I'll get the figures for you. And I guess if you're interested in the trends over time, like
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I know I'm one trick pony on this particular topic, mainly because I know I've got a secret spot. But what was I going to say? Something extraordinary. Look, anecdotally, one of my ex-colleagues now who is a Whitianga person, and I was a commercial diver, etc., was busily recounting me with great stories of rejuvenation, if you like, on scholar numbers and scholar bents from not only his experience but his context in that space. So obviously it needs to be managed. Don't want to end up opening and going back to stopping again. So yeah, so just because I mean it's a wonderful resource if we can manage it properly. Yes.
Yes.
Just a general comment, James. You finding it interesting? Is it valuable to the golf? You know, this.
Yeah. I think it's. I mean, it's one of the agenda items was approving the budget, and I think when it was approved, there was this observation that it was really a loaves and fishes type miracle that huge amounts are done with very, very modest amounts of money. So I think from that perspective of return on investment, it's terrific. It's really about coordinating efforts across all of the constituent parties, which is not always easy, but any win is a win. So yes, yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, I'd just like to add to James, thank you for your engagement in it. It's always interesting what you bring back. It always has been an interest for us, given our waters do flow into the Gulf, and obviously reiterate the need for people to work together and not in silos. That is definitely and to know what each other's doing, so it's a coordinated approach. So really appreciate that. Could I have a mover, please, of the report you received? And thanks, Dave. Oh, sorry, you had.
Oh, also just acknowledging the support of Nathan and Carolyn as well. Yes, at the meeting, but also outside that, agreeing everything.
Thank you. So, thanks, James. So moved Dane, seconded Sarah Jane. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carry. And congratulations on your promotion, Nathan, with Ellie moving up the food chain. We hear you've moved up the food chain too. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item 8.2. Is Lania down? Oh, you're doing it. That's right. That's the money.
Yeah.
Okay, Manoa. So we have 8.2, the May 2024 financial report. Be ready for a grilling.
Yes, that's just apologies from Lania. She had an appointment that she had to attend. She wanted to be here. But I do know that she sent both the CEO and I some information based on feedback that she'd received or that had come through to her, including a schedule of when the reports will be up. I know it's one of the things you're up. I actually got that, but I'll get that circulated to you or through the CEO. I will attempt to answer questions. I'm not sure that I can answer them all, but I'll, yeah, absolutely. And I'll
read. So we got questions from anybody? I decided that, well, I'll kick it off to know the lights on. I decided that I would put a magnifying glass on things and just working our way down through the graphs and the commentary. Just noting the arborist's increased costs, was there a flow on from last year's Cyclone Gabrielle that we didn't get work completed?
My understanding is, sorry, I had run time specifically, and he had reported to E-Team last month about his budget was there. A couple of reasons: traffic control significantly impacted on the cost this year, and also we're doing more inspection, examination of trees, and coming out of that was a lot more work earlier in the year.
Right.
And so they did pull back significantly in the last few months, but there were those two drivers. The more you look, the more you see. Yeah. And traffic costs.
Is it going to change with this government coming on?
I don't know.
No, there is plans to. Simeon is definitely, Minister Brown has definitely indicated that traffic management is going to be more of a risk-based, and it's according to what's being done. Yeah.
I just add, we were very executive team that the systems they put in place to monitor, they provide a very comprehensive report and projections of their budgets, and it was great to see that they were actively managing it. They knew what their target budget, and they were cutting things back. So in terms of process, followed on that had been commissioned this year, we were very happy with their monitoring process that they had in place.
And I guess we've got quite a few trees that are ageing in the district, and I highlight the one that fell in the Hatana Reserve back when that wind blew through, and there was one fell on the Wahara East Road as well out of the rail reserve. And I'd have to say that tree that was in the Hatana Street Reserve was definitely compromised because it was so unbalanced that definitely fell that way. anyway, that's what a gust of wind can do to compromise the stability of a tree. The other question I had is, what assurance do we have, does management have around the performance of our arborists? I'm getting a lot of comments from the community. You'd be amazed at how many people say, how many people does it take to trim a branch, and how long they're taking, and they're sitting there in their vehicles and they're on their phones. I don't know whether other councillors have had that, but I've had it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a big job. I mean,
it is.
I went past the corner of Rawiti and Wahara East, and they're taking literally the whole tree out. And look, there was cones from Mitre 10 halfway down to New World, which was a little overkill. And there was a lot of people there, but it's a really dangerous job.
So we talked about, as part of the discussion that came back to the executive team, we talked about, the question was asked by some of the executive team members, should we have our own look again at setting up our own crew? And to your point, it's very specialised with high risk work, and so we can obviously give feedback to the team about observations, but we also, I know the team do use other contractors when there's smaller jobs for flexibility. I do believe that the team are reasonably comfortable with the contractor we use, but look, we can feed any of that back.
I just want to keep that tension on performance of contractors that are operating for KVS.
I just think our best know what they're doing, we don't, and if any disaster strikes, it comes back on us. So.
Yeah, but there's a lot of standing around. This is the comment that I'm getting, and how many people does it take to change a light bulb?
There's a reason.
Yeah. Right, Russell.
Just a couple of comments in defence of the arborist. My son-in-law's a arborist from Tauranga, and spotters, everything, and it's a very dangerous job. He's thankful these last couple of months he's just been moved into the office, so and he still gets called out to become an extra spotter. And I think we still get the same comments on KVS workers and road workers. So many people standing around doing nothing. I don't think they're actually doing nothing. I think they are actually have a role to play. Just on the comment you made, Don, about the road management for our traffic control. Yeah. Can that be budgeted elsewhere so that the budget we have for our tree management, whatever it is purely for the tree management and the
split?
Sure. You could do that in some budgets. I think that in the arborist budget that they probably do that themselves. On other jobs, however, we do hire in on time private contractors, the traffic safety and the cost would be clearly separated from that. But maybe we have a word to Tyro. He might code or may be able to identify the setup cost. I'm not sure.
And I think one of the issues, like as part of this review that we've done at the organisation, one of the items that was identified that we perhaps had a bit of a skills gap and we might have some opportunities is bringing on some of that expertise into the team, so that we ensured our traffic management practices are appropriate. I think the reality is about traffic management. It's just like, to be honest, any aspect of health and safety we expect to be a core part of the job. And so, it's, I was just trying to think of another one, like just a whole health and safety practice, and you would be very familiar with this, any project, the pre-work, etc. It's all part of BAU for us. So whilst, there's actually no problem for us to pull out the amount we pay to arborists. We can do that very easily because we track it by creditor. So we can separate that ourselves. But in terms of our managers who are working with the jobs and planning for them, it's about the whole of the job, making sure everything's included.
So
I was just going to ask the team here, did they like the donuts?
We did get figures in this.
Yes, the figures are at the end.
Yes, no.
I don't mind the donut because it's showing where
I'm just asking, does everyone like the donuts? Everybody's happy with the donuts?
Everyone seems to be the thing, because that's how they're presenting reports at Fonterra now too.
Yeah.
Donut fitters.
I think having the numbers as well at the end is helpful.
Yeah.
But I think this does give an indication, and because it's broken down into line items or into things of common cost, that I found quite helpful, and especially with the narrative. I thought the narrative underneath them was really helpful because I've gone on to ask more questions. But Dane, you've got a question?
I was just going to mention that. So Lania most definitely invites the feedback.
Yeah.
It's got to provide the information that you want.
Yeah.
I have to admit myself, I look at that and I look at my own stuff in more detail. So I understand. So we want to shape this to, and she's already sent me another from the chief discussion with the chief executive, some more enhancements.
Yeah.
So please, if it's not meeting your needs, we will change.
Yeah, because it's a waste of time doing it if nobody's, that's all.
You don't just listen, Dane.
Yeah, I just have a look at the operating revenues and I see that the refuse transfer stations are down by quite a bit. What's the reason for that? I just wonder whether that's going to be an ongoing thing like it has been with the water, and you've got to kind of take that into account in future budgets, or is it like a specific thing to this year that's causing?
No, it's been consistent for the last few years, and I guess it is exactly what you say, a little bit like the water. And I know there's this concern that if you push those numbers up too high, you start creating other problems in the vicinity. But it's to be honest, it's one of the areas that I think councillors have seen financial reports for the last 3 or 4 years where we've not quite hit the mark. We keep pushing the fees, but we don't quite hit the mark.
And I guess it is, are we being over optimistic on our income versus what's actually?
It's all good to be sure. It's all good to be, short on the things that kind of catch you out, because you don't know what's going to just happen in the year. But if you're starting to see some trends. Then it's nice to know that next year we take that out because we're not going to set ourselves up for failure.
And I think what's important and where we are at the moment in terms of the change of the system that we've just introduced. I mean, you recall Louisa reporting about how much food waste has been taken out of the waste stream. So what is the effect on the gate of our new process? So that does take time.
Too.
Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot less rubbish going to landfill because the other rubbish bin is doing its job.
Yeah.
And so then that's going to be ongoing. So we need to make sure that we set the budget based around that future.
And it's a win.
And of course the levy goes up. The levy goes up anyway. Following on from that, I just was, because I sort of thought, well, hopefully it's been taken into account going forward. Are there any specifics around the landfill aftercare costs being lower than budgeted?
Yeah, so what we do with landfill, what we do and have to do now under the accounting standards is we have to create a liability in our balance sheet that recognises that you have to keep looking after these things that you've got an ongoing.
The old dumps. So this is what we're talking
about. So that practice probably started 10 years ago. So we put a provision in our budget for actual physical works, but in any one year that can change. And so, for example, if we have quite a huge in a particular year overspend, that will actually come off our liability potentially. We'll actually readjust our liability. So variations on an annual basis can occur.
Yeah.
But we've got a kind of a bigger picture of what we're incurring.
Yeah. I just wanted to see, make sure that picture was painted, that this is a general thing over a number of years, and it might be under 1 year and over another year. Yeah. Cool. I just noted there was unsubsidised roading costs, that there was an increase. How's that tied in with transport choices?
No, sorry, and I had to dive into this one a little bit this morning just because I couldn't see the same thing. But what it is our street cleaning costs, there's a portion of our street cleaning costs which is subsidised and a portion which is non-subsidised. We accumulate it in a non-subsidised area, and at the end of the financial year, we transfer it across into subsidised. And so it always kind of looks like it's ballooning, and then in June, it siphons out. So there's no alarm bells for me in what I see, but until that final transfer, but there's no alarm bells for me. So it's timing, I guess.
Yeah.
And actually, the point about that, I suppose, in the learning is, let's just be a little bit, and for the team is we should have recognised that. And I'm not criticising the comments. I should have picked that up myself.
Yeah, and I guess it's just how those comments are relayed as to how we interpret them, and that's probably my response to it. So that's all good. I seem to be the only one that had lots of questions. I just couldn't help myself, obviously, this time. What kind of budgeted maintenance isn't being required to date? Because obviously that was in the next one down in the operating. And how's our capital spend looking to budget?
Sorry?
Is there an overhang? Yeah, that's in the operating. it's stormwater, that's stormwater, that's fine, because we didn't have to do anything this year.
You know, what happens to, exactly, what happens to the, what we get and receive.
And I think the other thing to note in the waters is obviously the 800,000 for bedrock funding has been approved. We're yet to receive it. But that will help off because that's accruing, obviously sitting in an accrual space at the moment. And I think we've accounted for the unders again with what you were talking about with the under budgeting and the transfer station on the waste is around the metered water. Hopefully we've addressed that under that's been occurring over the past few years. So I think hopefully we'll be good to go there. Just moving down into strategies and engagement, just have we dipped into reserves more than normal?
Well, typically expenditure on reserve and from reserves are in accordance with a decision of council for specific purposes. We can't dip in for anything. No. So again, it will fluctuate, but it's for prescribed purposes. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is there's not been anything indiscriminate happen. It's all been
that we've made though that we have
Can I just
consciously used reserves
some
for
of it hasn't come back.
Yeah, and I guess with the Freedom Camping one, that was done with a grant from government, and we were applying for the next tranche of funding. Looking at Sandra with the signage and stuff, so I wouldn't have thought that would have been significant. I know the initial quote didn't cover all the cost of forming the policy, but it wouldn't have been a significant amount of money, would it? This would be quite small.
So we received 2 grants from the Ministry of Business, one for the initial development of the bylaw. I think it ended up costing us a few $1,000s on.
Yeah, it wasn't significant.
It was a very small amount that covered the majority of it. We received a second grant which covered all of the signage, installation costs, car park painting where we got the Freedom Camping signs put on, and all of our comms related costs, all the graphic design, newspaper ads, and it's also currently covering the Nathan's team, or now Ryan's team, to help them set up an enforcement scheme so that they make sure that they've got all of the tools in their toolbox that they need to do that enforcement should it be needed. So that's cost council a very small amount of money.
Yeah, so that, whereas now it'll be in the operational side with Ryan's role rather than, no, that's cool.
What does he do?
Ryan's a compliance officer. He's the lead compliance.
What does he do?
What does he do?
Well, they monitor resource consent compliance. You know, when people have conditions issued with the consent, then there's follow up to that to make sure that those conditions are being fulfilled. Where people are clearly breaching bylaw, they'll look into that type of thing.
And complaints, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just had another couple was just around obviously with the slowdown. So in our consents and licensing, just with the slowdown in building, I note our resource consents are still seem to be chucking along a little bit, but will we not be so reliant on external consultants as a result?
Certainly in the building area, that's definitely what the team are looking at. We will be clear for we are using them less, and I believe. Oh no, Ellie's not there, but they are definitely driven, and I guess that's the beauty of externals to an extent. It is very much demand driven, so we don't have demand out there.
I guess the only thing is with these external consultants, are they are some performing better than others to meet our timeframes? Because it's the old story of some are performing better than others, because when they come back 15 days later to a person that's for an RFI, they haven't actually achieved our outcome.
That's right, you're right. And to be fair to the managers in both those areas, it's been an issue they've been following up with the consultants where plainly there's things that have happened that we would prefer that didn't happen. Like the example you just suggested. But just recently we approved a procurement plan for the external consultant for our building consultants. We've established a relationship with a more formal relationship rather than.
And so you'll have a preferred consultant,
preferred providers,
and they will be clear on their meeting our efficiency and quality.
Yep.
Excellent. No, that's great. because I know there's been criticisms of Christchurch, consultants from Christchurch and, you know, the knowledge of our area and stuff. Which sometimes is a little bit irrelevant, but it has relevance sometimes, and it's just a frustration to the customer, just to.
Well, it's certainly something that people perceive, I'm not,
That's right. It is a perception. And they do like dealing with their local people because they use their
It's
local
very
people.
upsetting on the last day when you're supposed to.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
No,
That's when people get upset.
No, that's great. No, just obviously just trying to keep attention on where we're spending, what are we doing, and that rolling. And just ultimately, I can see from the accounts that if you lift the bonnet, the DCs are still distorting the picture. They're hiding a bit of an operating deficit. So my comment is I look forward to an annual report. It's not significant, but the DCs do hide.
They're shown as income and they're tagged income. So they are not general income.
So if you look at the funding impact statement,
Yeah.
That's where the DCs are put down into capital so that they don't distort the financial result. I think you mentioned
too bad, eh? It's not looking too bad.
No, it's looking overall, and this is what I always jump to the bottom actually, and then I go back.
But I thought it looked right.
It is looking. It's looking. There is definitely the chief executive, and we were having a review of this very recently. Had an expectation about the control, and we've seen so. And KVS is a good example of where they've picked up that process and improved their control. So I think there's more tension being placed on that management and better visibility. So the things that are tending to go out are whack to an extent are things that have where either we've got a pricing issue or we got a demand issue. But the things that we can control, I think there are better controls in place.
Yeah.
I think the other point, I think you asked a question about the level of capital spend. I just wanted to flag, so there's a line item on the funding statement, capital used to fund assets. And if you look at it in pure dollar terms, we're about 92% of our budget spent, which is pretty good. We knew we were getting better. What I would say, though, is what Lani has identified. We've got a project reporting framework that's coming through to you, and we need to just reconcile our financials with that. So you're getting, because it's all very well to say we're at 92% of our budget, but what does it look like on an actual project? So there's that piece of work that's part of our focus this year to tie those two together.
It just gives us that good oversight of there's no surprises. And that's where I note with the capital spend with the Lockerbie waste treatment plant, drinking water plant. There's obviously we've entered into the contingency. What drove the additional cost in that plant? Like, it's good that we had the contingency, but just interested to understand what drove us into that space.
To be fair, that should, if you would like, I mean, that could be, we could get a specific report done on it. I just can't tell off the top of my head.
And it's about to be open, so it'd be quite good to understand the were there any learnings from it and what drove us to have to use that contingency. It might have been any number of things, but just curious to know.
I do know that the team, because the team regularly reports to the executive team, and there's been a very much attention put on it. So the chief executive had constantly said, even though council has given me approval up to this limit, that's not a target. And I think, to be fair, I think that we can see from the reports we're getting that there is that tension. They list all the variations.
Perfect.
And I think from memory, what happened, at the tender acceptance process, we got a damn cheap price at that point, didn't we? It was hugely different from the next one.
Yes.
And so we kind of expected we would get some variations, but that was all managed. And so, as the chief executive said, the team I like the tension they put on that process. It's, as I said before, it's not been a target. It's about let's make sure that everything is.
And I think we made that clear that day, didn't we, when we passed the recommendation around the budget for the water plant treatment plant.
That's still way less than that.
Correct. Is what was initially said. So yeah, that's right. That's the number I remember too. So it's just, I just felt it was good to just raise it, talk about it.
The style of contract, to some extent, it was a design and build contract. We've learned something from that process, to be fair. But in having a design build for that type of project, inevitably there are issues that arise that weren't resolved. The traditional way of doing your design, then putting your design out, resolves most of the issues in the design process. These were resolving issues as we went along. So hence why, the price move, but, the contingency probably got eaten into sugar that as well.
Yeah, no, just good to just have that conversation so that we've taken the time to actually digest the information that we've been given. So I hope I haven't waffled on too much, but I've been quite targeted in
I'll get Lani to circulate her schedule through to you, and also some enhancements that she's made ever since talking to the chief executive. So, and I reiterate, we want to provide the right information for you, but please do not hesitate to give us honest feedback about whether it's hitting the mark or not.
I think the narrative underneath it certainly spurred me to ask some questions, but I'm probably getting engrossed in it. So it's nice to just get that assurance. Right, so thank you. There's no other comments or questions. So would someone like to move the
Yes, I just going to make a push for that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. The donuts. I do like the donuts. But when it goes over 100%, it gets really weird. And it's like I wouldn't mind the numbers underneath the donut would be kind of cool.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's one of the enhancements she's just sent me through.
Perfect. Very good. Excellent. And you're happy to move that the report be received and May 24 report received. So move James, seconded Dane. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Dane. No, it was Dane. Dane seconded it. Kevin. Oh, did I say Jane? Yeah. Kevin. Sorry. Jeepers, I'd look at a person and give them the wrong name. Jeepers, sorry.
Normally Caleb and James.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But that was my kids. Who are my kids? Which ones are they? Right. We'll move to item 8.3, which is the CCO performance monitoring final statement for RAL. Thank you, Laura.
And good to everyone. So as Mayor Adrian said, today I'm happy to present the Waikato Regional Airport Limited Group's final statement of intent. This is for the financial year 24-25. So as you will know, they are a council-controlled organisation. They're required to produce the statement of intent for each financial year. They've provided council with the opportunity to provide comment on their draft, and that was done, that was considered at your council meeting on the 24th of April, and you resolved to approve that document. And so now we present the final. So there have been a few changes that I'll highlight. The first one is that there's been a new objective added, and that is around to future-proof the airport as an international airport. And they have also added a sentence to strengthen the dividend aspect, and that reads, find it, dividend. So they've just added a sentence there that says the directors recognise the importance of dividend payments to shareholders. So it was already there, but they've just added a clarification. And there's been some minor amendments to the key performance targets, and that's just following final budgets. There's been some adjustments made there, and that's included in your report. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions and move to the recommendation.
Just one. MPBT. What was that?
MP.
Net profit before tax.
Where is that?
Thank you. And why the 2026 figure should go from the draft go 13 million to 2? That's kind of the only one that really.
Sorry, which one are you looking at?
The draft.
I think this is around the payment of dividends and freeing up cash.
The draft one was 13 million in 2026, and the final one is 2 million.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the only one. The only one that
Not
really
profit,
changed
not less than. I think it's to do with the development too, though, because things have changed. Things have changed in their development of the land, in their plans for the airport. That may have something to do with the ability to, because they're investing, they might change tack a little bit.
Yeah, and there is a new objective around
this.
Yeah.
I just moved to that 12 months, yes.
Ambitious land sales.
Yes. Yes. There's quite a bit of land there
they'll have to keep built because once you sell.
They are increasing their rentals quite significantly on their properties that they do own too. So, are there any further questions? Okay, so are there no further questions? I'll ask for someone to move the motion that the report be received and that the final statement of intent be received. Move it, please. Thanks, Russell. Seconder. Thanks, Sharon. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, and then our final item, 8.4, is then run for our 2024 LGNZ conference attendance in Wellington in August.
Discussion around
Normally,
this would be worse than the.
normally it's held in this week of the year. I presume because our LGNZ chair is overseas at the moment in England and doing a bit of a junket, having a holiday, but also meeting with councils over there, that might be why it's been pushed to August. So, Kevin, you're happy to move the report be received, and I hope that councillors Jager and Horn are still a go and they've got their tickets booked.
Got their passports.
Yeah. Go to Wellington. Move, Kevin, seconder, please. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Gary.
I want you to go.
Everyone's going to sleep.
I'll second them.
Oh, no, I've got Gary seconder. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, that does conclude our meeting today. Thank you for your engagement. I know that the one item concerning Manawaru was particularly challenging, very hard to come to a simple solution when
You can make it more difficult.
yeah, it certainly has its challenges. So thank you, everyone, and I'll now declare the meeting closed.